Man, it is such a pleasure to have our man Bobby Gerould here on the show with us. HoopObsession.com, NBA draft expert. No one better to talk about what is going on with the Sacramento Kings and what this upcoming draft might look like than our man Bobby Gerould, who also has one of the best like TikTok accounts in the game, because my man will spin records. He'll put that phone on and you just listen to Bobby spin, and that's always a good look. Bobby, as much as I love talking music with you, this draft it's making some noise of itself. It's making some noise on its own, and the Sacramento Kings, as it stands right now, are in a prime position to land one of the better players. How we hear the first round, the lottery, the top two. How deep do you think this draft is?
I think it's one of the best drafts we've seen in a while, without question. Really deep on point guards too. It's something we don't see, usually over the course of different drafts. So, there's definitely some depth there, but at the top, it's top heavy. I mean, I think most people would look at it like between Caleb Wilson, AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, Darius Acuff, Cameron Boozer. It seems like you're probably not going to go wrong if you get one of those top 5 picks. Maybe there's a little bit of a fall off after that, but there's still good players to be had, and some players, as you guys well know, it's time right now. It's March. It's time for the meaningful basketball, and so I don't want to plant my flag too hard on any one of these prospects. I kind of want to let this play out and see what we can learn, see if we can learn some more things, because some guys have definitely slipped. Darren Peterson has not had his last 5 games. He's not played well. He shot like 32% over the course of his last 5 games, including, some really, he had a 3 of 18 the other day, and that's not going to get it. And then his defensive numbers are not good either. So there's definitely a lot to consider. And it's going to be interesting, I think, especially because some of these guys have more pop. When you watch their highlights, it's very easy to see and fall in love with Caleb Wilson and AJ DeBonsa, and probably very easy to discount Cameron Boozer a little bit. But Cameron probably, if you just looked at numbers, has the best numbers of any of these guys.
So the consensus throughout college basketball has been the top 2 guys are Darren and AJ, and they are franchise changers. And then there's another level where it's Cam Boozer and Caleb Wilson, and those are potential all-stars. And then you've got the Darius Acuffs, the Michael Browns, guys like that who are really good players. Do you subscribe to that theory of that's how maybe the top 8 to 10 picks are kind of broken up, where you got the 2 franchise changers, 2 all-stars, and then some good players?
So I am big on Caleb Wilson. I like Caleb Wilson, and I think he has as good a chance as anybody to be the guy who impacts the game the most on both ends of the floor. So among those top 4 or 5 guys, as far as defense goes, I think Caleb Wilson would be number 1. I would put him number 1 defensively in that group, and probably Boozer number 2 defensively in that group. Now, the others, though, like I say, you see that pop, you see what Peterson can do, you see what he's been able to do in crunch time in games that matter. He's won games for Kansas, but then there's a whole other part of Peterson and what comes with him, whether or not he's tough enough. Can he play through injuries? And it's hard to sift through the talk, because sometimes Bill Self, his coach, looks really exasperated with Peterson and the situation, and then other times he's sticking up for him, saying, this guy had a hamstring injury, and then that led to the problems with the quad, and then he legitimately got the flu, and it just seemed like it was one thing after another, and it was really easy to pile on Peterson as maybe not being the toughest guy or not wanting to play. And Bill Self was kind of pushed back on that and said, no, that's not true. He likes to play. This isn't a load management type issue. But at the same time, you and I and Dila, we've all seen this before. And sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire with a guy who maybe just doesn't bring it as much as, say, the next guy does, or, needs a little more recovery time, or whatever the case is. And so I'm still trying to grapple with that as far as where I put him. But I'm a big fan of Caleb Wilson, and I do think that he has the best chance to impact both offense and defense. Right now, he's fourth in the entire NCAA in box score plus minus, which, that's analytic stuff. But without him, North Carolina is 14.1 points per 100 possessions worse when he's off the floor. That's a big number. And when I watch him and then seeing a little bit of his personality, I wouldn't overlook Caleb Wilson, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think he has the kind of charisma too that, if he happens to be that pick, I think he's about the smoke. I think he's a kind of guy who will energize the city. I think he has charisma. I'm very high on Caleb Wilson.
What do you think is the biggest difference? Like, you talked about Caleb and the things that he does right. You mentioned AJ already, Darren Peterson, the scrutiny he's getting. From a basketball perspective, like what they're able to do on the floor, what do you think is the biggest difference between the top prospects, namely Darren Peterson and AJ DeMonsta?
AJ and Darren. I think AJ has a better chance to be a good defender. Darren seems a little bit indifferent to me at times when I watch him on defense.
He'll fit right in.
Right? So, we see basketball is such a trip because, you look at a guy like Zach LaVine who can score on three levels and is really a fantastic offensive player, but so much of it is about fit. And he just clearly doesn't fit with DeMar DeRozan and Russell Westbrook. But I think if Zach was playing with a real point guard and he was the undisputed number one go-to guy as a scorer, he'd probably fare a lot better than he has here with the Sacramento Kings. And so I worry about that a little bit, maybe with Peterson, because the defensive numbers aren't great. Same with Acuff. I love Darius Acuff. What he's doing right now, and I think he's really marching up the boards. And at some point, there's a part of me that just wants to say, hey, we'll worry about the defense later. You know what I mean? If let's get a defensive coach and coach him up and teach him the things that he's not doing. But as we all know, sometimes it's just a want to, or how much do you care about playing defense? But Acuff definitely I think is another guy that should be mentioned in that mix. And for me, I think I've moved him beyond Kingston Flemings now, or ahead of Kingston Flemings as a guy that needs to be taken a little bit more seriously, should be talked about in the top five, the way I see it. AJ is a great scorer. He's going to score. That guy's just, and he gets to the free throw line, which is something I really like. He's fourth in free throws attempted in the entire NCAA, leads the Big 12. He's just impossible to keep out of the lane. And if you watch some of his highlights, man, reverse pivot at the 3-point line, and in 2 steps, he's at the basket, finger rolling on someone. He can maneuver left or right. And defensively, I don't think he's as far away as some of those other top prospects are.
Well, you started talking my language a little bit, man. Darius Acuff, man, you want to talk about somebody that's been going up, and up on the draft boards. I probably had him late lottery as long as a month and a half ago. And I've, for whatever reason, watched a lot of Arkansas basketball this year, 6-7 games or something like that. And every time I come back in here, Damian, I said, man, I watched that cup again last night. This guy, and he just keeps going up and up and up. And it's to the point now, Bobby, where I really believe he's the third best prospect in this draft. I take him ahead of, I like Caleb and I like Cam Boozer, but I like Acuff more than those two. I'm a little partial to point guards, but I look for, when I watch, okay, what doesn't he do well? What is a weakness? Not that he's a perfect player, but what's a weakness of his? And I haven't found one yet, Bobby. I haven't found one.
Watch him off
good everywhere.
Watch him off the ball, Kenny. He definitely needs to care more, and his fundamentals are poor. He's routinely out of position and just not locked in and alert the way I like to be. But they're all teachable things, right? They're all things that you can teach someone. So if if he can get locked in and get better on that end, and for my analytics people out there, I'll throw this out there. He's a -6 defensive differential. What that means is the defensive rating of Arkansas is this, and when he's on the floor, it's 6 points worse. So per 100 possessions, and that's a big number. So it's not like he really is struggling on the defensive end, but like you said, I mean, he's shooting 43% from 3-point range. He has a better than 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio with a scorer's mentality, and you just don't find that every day. And then you look at the history of John Calipari point guards who usually have been held back a little bit. And that's not the case with him. I mean, his numbers are better than most of the Calipari point guards that came through Kentucky. So definitely there's a lot to be a fan of there. So like I said, it's top heavy. But the problem is that the reality is you have an 86% chance of not getting the first pick. That, everyone wants to say, well, if we tank and we finish last. Well, no, really, you have an 86% chance you won't win the lottery. So Jamal Crawford, everyone loves Jamal Crawford, right? He's an 86% career free throw shooter. That's like betting that Jamal Crawford's going to miss a free throw, right? I mean, it's, what I'm saying? It's probably not going to happen.
I hear you, Bobby, but well, first of all, we're Kings fans. It's not happening, and we're aware of it.
Right.
Second of all,
fifth is the default, right?
That's it. That's
exactly.
it. That's it, Bobby. That's what's that. And we were just looking at this string of games coming up with the Nets and the Pacers, and to a certain degree, you got teams that aren't necessarily playing great, like the Pelicans, Jazz, and Chicago coming up here. And it's like, man, Doug is trying to win games. Like, you can see that in games that are close. You could see that in minutes that are being played. Like, Doug is trying to win games, and he might accidentally win a couple, and all of a sudden, it might still be that 86% thing. But now worst case scenario is 8 instead of 5. And
there's a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, that
there is. Let's go through it. 5th picks: Fox, Trae Young, Darius Garland, Jalen Suggs, Asar Thompson, Ron Holland. Those guys were all 5th picks. 8th picks: Frank Ntilikina, Colin Sexton.
You get a laugh from Bobby Gerould, you know it was bad.
Rob Dillingham, Jarris Walker. A couple of those guys still have yet to be decided. Dyson Daniels is a good player. He went 8th, and probably the best recent 8th pick was Franz Wagner. So there are obviously, situations where you can get a good 8th pick, but you'd be lying if you said the pool of guys who were picked 8th is anywhere close to the pool of guys who were picked 5th. So it can be a big difference, and I do understand that. But yeah, I hear you, and especially when Cardwell comes back, I think they'll have a better chance of probably winning games just because they'll have some more defense on the floor.
And Bobby, we talk about the people that were drafted 1st, 3rd, 5th, 8th. There's a bunch of all-stars and Hall of Famers that were like 15th or 20th.
Absolutely.
The consensus that we've always said from day one is you just have to get it right.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to say I don't care. Like, I want the number 1 pick. I want the best chance or the first chance to go get, somebody top level. But I don't really care as long as you get it right. If the Kings fall to 8th and they find DeMarcus Cousins, the next DeMarcus Cousins at 8th, 5 years from now, we're not going to worry that they failed to 8th. You know what I'm saying? You just got to get it right no matter where you're at.
Yeah, like 8th on my board right now is Koa Pete from Arizona. He's okay. Braden Berries, I might even switch that because I like Braden Berries probably a little bit more from Arizona. I mean, he's a guy who could be there around the 8th pick. One guy that nobody talks about is because he doesn't play in the United States is Kareem Lopez from New Zealand, who's playing he's actually a Mexican kid. He's playing in New Zealand for the New Zealand Breakers, but he's someone I would encourage everyone to check out. I have on hoopobsession.com, if you go there and you click on my draft board, I have video links of all these players. So if you just want to get a quick, feel for what they look like, you can click on that real quick and see what Kareem Lopez looks like, and get a little bit of a feel. And then later on, as we go through this draft process, I'll start. When you click on a link, it'll have a little capsule of my thoughts and where I'm at on some of these players, as we continue to go on. Like I said, it's early in the process. I don't want to plant my flag too hard on any one of these guys because it's all fluid. It all could change. And the best basketball of the season is coming right now. It's a really fun time to be a fan for sure.
Bobby, the only person who is Bobby Gerould with us, by the way, hoopobsession.com, NBA draft expert. The only person who has watched more bad basketball than your father is probably you.
Yeah.
You've seen it all with this organization. You have been through it all with this organization. The incredible highs, the incredible lows. How bad was this season?
It's bad, Damien. I mean, when it gets to the point where you don't even want to watch, which is where I was at for a while.
A while ago.
Yeah. I mean, I got interested again a little bit because I had some thoughts on Killian Hayes after part of my process is watching the G League for a week. I watch G League games for a week and then do a report on what I see. And I really thought that Killian Hayes was at that point where he deserves to be looked at through a different lens instead of, people looking at him as a failed lottery pick, which is absolutely what he was. Now you can look at him, just, forget about all that. He's just a guy trying to get back into the league. And the shooting aside, obviously, which has not been good since he's been with the Kings. In the last 2 seasons in the G, he shot 34% from 3, which is acceptable. It's below the league average, but it is acceptable. Now, obviously, that hasn't translated so far in his games with Sacramento. But one thing I will point out is 17 assists and only 1 turnover in his time here with Sacramento, and giving you positional size at the point guard to defend at 6'4", 6'5", with a ready-made NBA body. So he's a little bit older, and I don't think that we're talking about Killian Hayes being a starting point guard or anything like that. But I did peg him as someone who I thought definitely deserved a chance. I think he could. Like Chris Dunn and Gary Payton II before him, be guys who didn't work their first crack in the NBA, had to do it the hard way through the G League, got the reps, came back up through. And now if you view him through a different lens, I think he's ready to be a guy who can contribute on this team. I would love to see what would happen if you just threw him out there and let him play 30 minutes, maybe on a night when Russ has a night off or something like that, and just see how the offense functions with a real point guard, because, the Kings haven't played with a real point guard. Even when Dennis Schroeder was here, I didn't feel like he was that pure point guard that really looks to set up other people. So, again, I don't want to go overboard on Killian Hayes, but I do think I'm happy to see that they signed him to a second 10-day. I would like to see him get signed for the rest of the season. And he's been a reason, at least for me, to kind of get back into watching the Kings, or having a reason to watch these games. Because, man, it's been frustrating. But, obviously, there have been some, you want to talk low points, we definitely could go there. I mean, back through the years, it's been difficult at times for this team. But yeah, this is bad. But this is one thing I would think, and I know you guys have been talking about Doug Christie and what's going to happen with Doug at the end of the season. And, for as bad as this team's record is, I've seen a lot worse as far as chemistry goes, and a locker room and the different aspects that surround losing. I think this team, for the most part, in general, has stuck together. They've had a pretty good attitude. Their practices seem to be, it's like, we get our butts kicked one night, but the next day it's a clean slate. And I think we've seen some development too from some of these guys. Dylan Cardwell was someone who I kind of dismissed as a draft evaluator last year, just because, I watched him for years and all those games at Auburn. He's a guy that had 5 turnovers for every 1 assist, a guy who couldn't make half of his free throws. And I looked at him again in summer league, and I was just like, whatever. but there's really is something there to his defense. And it's something that the Kings haven't had. And that's someone who, who could really rebound and protect the rim. And I think he's done some really good things. So kudos to whoever it was in the Kings, front office that thought it was worth bringing in Cardwell and then sticking with him because he really didn't do that great of a job in summer league. And I think he's come around. He didn't have some of the, like when he gets an offensive rebound, he goes back to a quick right hand jump hook. He didn't have that at all at Auburn, or at least he never showed it. Right. So I think that's development. That's good work by the coaches. I think his free throw shooting actually looks a little bit better. It's still, the percentage isn't good, but it looks a little bit better. So I do see some progress there. So I think those are two things that should work in Doug's favor a little bit.
Your father had one of the great calls opening night on Dylan Cardwell's free throw that remember late in the game, and it wide right and almost breaks the backboard.
Yeah.
and Gary Gerould was just he was like, he didn't expect it. He's like, oh, that was a rough one. It was a classic, man. But I'm with you. I love Dylan. I love Dylan. And I saw the same things that you saw at Auburn and in the summer league and dismissed it the same way. And something clicked when he came to training camp and played with his team. He's been fantastic. I love that guy on this team. Speaking of the rookies, what's your takeaway of Maxime Reynaud, Nick Clifford, and what they've been able to do with the time they've had on the court this year?
I think, Maxime was one I was high on. I had him in the middle of the first round, and he ends up going to the Kings with the 42nd pick. So obviously I was happy. I would say that I thought he had a little more four in him than he's shown. So I pulled up this stat. Maxime made 67 3-point shots at Stanford in 35 games. 67 in 35 games. That's almost 2 a game, right? And so far in Sacramento, he's made 11 in 55 games. So it's a little bit of a different shot. It's a little bit further away. But I thought we would see more of that. I thought we would see more of him as a 3-point shooter, and we may still. That might be the focus of him in the summer. But I think he needs to add that, because offensively he looks like a 5 only to me. Defensively, I do think that he shifts his hips quick enough to guard some fours, maybe not all the fours, but I think he can guard some fours. And that would be key if you could play him with, alongside Cardwell. But for that to happen, he's going to have to hit that 3-point shot with more consistency, because we're not asking Dylan to go out there and shoot a 3-point shot. And I've always felt like you could have one non-shooter. If you want to win consistently in the NBA, you could probably only have one non-shooter, and it should probably be your center. And when I say non-shooter, I'm talking about a 3-point shooter.
Yeah, the Kings might out like 4 of them this year.
Man, the
Kings have gone the way that they have.
The Kings are dead last in 3-point shooting. They're dead last in true shooting percentage, which, for those that don't know, true shooting percentage is a shooting percentage that factors in the value of 3-point field goals and free throws, in addition to conventional 2-point field goals. And the Kings rate dead last in that. So they just don't have 3-point shooters on their team. That's just a fact. So you've got Monk and you've got Doug McDermott, who never plays. So really, you have Monk.
When he does.
Right.
That man walks in and hits 7 threes in a row and leaves.
Right. And then you've got, Zach LaVine can make threes. DeAndre Hunter is a career average NBA.
Right. On this team.
Right. Exactly. So LaVine and Hunter don't play. McDermott doesn't play. So you have one guy on the roster that shoots better than the league average that actually plays, and that's Malik Monk. And that, to me, is the biggest problem with the Sacramento Kings, is the lack of shooting. I mean, you just have to get some 3-point shooters in here.
Did you guys know 28 years ago yesterday, the Philadelphia 76ers played a game and they were the last team to play a game and not attempt a three-pointer.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
They won too, 87-80.
You said how many? 28 years
28
ago?
years ago, they didn't attempt a three-pointer. That's ridiculous. Larry Brown.
That about lines up, right? The late 90s NBA was just right. Rock 'em, sock 'em.
Yeah.
It was, hand-to-hand combat in the paint and yeah. That is crazy.
5 flagrant fouls in that game. 6 guys fouled out.
1998. Yeah, March 4th, 1998. Yeah.
Wow.
The Sixers, though, like, I know you guys have talked about this a lot, but the Sixers are a great study in why don't get too excited about the lottery and the process and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you could get those picks and screw them up, like you said.
Yeah, they missed so much, Bobby. Like they missed so many times during that process.
Exactly. And then you could even, the guy you hit on could be hurt all the time. So
see, but that's the thing, Bobby, because one thing we really lean in on is it's like what we've been talking about Phoenix a lot. Obviously, the Kings just played Phoenix and how Matt Ishbia has taken these wild swings with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, and then he's resetting everything. He's bringing in Jordan Ott, and you're able to do that. And credit to them because they really have turned things around in a nice way this year. Because you have Devin Booker, you have the focal point, like you have the guy. You could talk about Okafor and what Ben Simmons wound up becoming. Like he was obviously really good to start, but or at least good to start. Things kind of went a different way, but you landed the guy, and that's what that whole thing centers on. Is you landed the singular player, the guy to build around. And once you got through a couple of years of injuries, it's like, hey man, this dude is really good. And for a stretch of 4 years. 5 years, he was one of the top 3 players in the entire league.
Yep.
But it was about getting that one. Yeah. And they did it.
Yeah, and it, like you say, it's just it's a crapshoot. You hope that you hope that they've learned from, just like all of us. We've learned from our mistakes and different things we do, and no one's ever going to get it right. 100% right. Even the great Jerry West was the guy who was influencing the Clippers to draft Kobe Brown. Danny Ainge has some bad picks under his belt. So if you just hope that you're going to get 65 to 70% right, you're going to be ahead of the game. And you hope that everyone's just going to do their due diligence and make it happen. I never did talk much about Nick Clifford. You guys were asking about both of those rookies. And I would say this. I think Nick has definitely showed that he is an NBA defender, a quality NBA defender. I think he's miscast a little bit. I don't think he's a point guard. I don't think he ever will be a point guard. I'm pretty particular about what I see in point guards, and I try to stay very data informed all the time. And there's a lot of times you can look at historical assist to turnover ratios and have a pretty good idea who's a point guard and who's not a point guard. And then you follow that up with just watching a player play and see the kind of instincts and the passes he makes. I think Nick is too small to be a small forward. I think he's not a good enough passer and decision maker to be a natural point guard. So I think he's a 2. I think he's 100% a 2. And so I'd like to see them get to that path sooner than later. If Killian Hayes and Nick are on the floor at the same time, or Devin Carter and Killian Hayes are on the floor at the same time, inbound the ball to Killian Hayes and let him run the offense. Let's not screw around. Shot selection for the Kings is so bad, bad. And so I would love to see Nick just play the 2. I think he's a blender and a connector. I think he's a guy who's probably going to average 12 points a game or something like that, when he's really on a good team, but he's going to get you 2 or 3 steals. He's going to play team basketball and guard his guy. And I think he's a rotational piece in the NBA going forward. But I don't see him as like a future star of the NBA. And maybe that's just me. Kind of with Maxime too. Maxime doesn't defend enough. Once he gets stronger, maybe he'll have a better chance at that. But love his offense. Love the right hand, the left hand, instinctively and naturally. You throw it to him, and he's quick with it. He shoots a good field goal percentage, all that stuff, and he communicates very loud. I think he has a chance to be a good team defender down the road. And once he adds strength, but I'm not sure that you're ever looking at like Maxime as a top 10 center in the league. And I could be wrong about that too. I think he'd be, yeah, I think he could be a starter for sure. But it's hard because you don't just want to, I'm sure Doug feels this way. You don't just want to hand out minutes to people. And if, in almost any other situation in the NBA this year, Maxime would not be getting the opportunities that he's getting here with the Kings. I don't think he'd be a 25 to 30 minute a game guy. But he is getting that opportunity here. And so he's, given a chance to do something with it. And I think he's done a really good job. I think he's solid, maybe has a chance to be all rookie second team. But I'm not sure that that's, going forward. I think the Kings probably will be best to play with Cardwell as a center just because he's such a stopper and a defensive difference maker. It's tangible, not only with the data, but also just what you see with your eyes when you watch Dylan play. And then he also brings some fun to the game too. So he's an easy guy to get behind. Perfect for Sacramento.
Yeah, real quick, Casey, the marathon continues with our NBA draft expert, hoopobsession.com, our man Bobby Gerould here on KIFM West Sacramento, KRX QHD2 Sacramento, ESPN 1320, always live on the free Odyssey app.
Real quick, I wanted to follow up on that Sixers game.
Oh.
No, just want to follow up on the Sixers game. No three-pointers attempted.
Yep. They
played the Bucks. The Bucks attempted 10 and made one.
Wow.
One three-pointer was made in that game. Ray Allen is so 6 to 10.
So different. And that's why guys get injured more too, right? I mean, at least that's my non-educated, I'm no doctor by any stretch of the imagination, but I think teams place so much more attention to defense now and play harder, and every possession with the floor spread out, you're covering more ground. To me, that's why we've seen such an uptick in injuries, compared to what we used to see back in the day when guys just didn't run. I'm sure the tracking data from the beginning of when they started tracking how many miles a guy runs during a game or whatever. I'd love to see that, see how different it is from 1998 to 2026 or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
I got one more follow-up for Bobby before he brought up Devin Carter.
Go ahead.
Bobby's laughing. Bobby's laughing. So clearly I don't even need to ask. I'll just say Devin Carter, and Bobby will say what?
I wish he could shoot better, and I wish his shot selection was better. And I think, to be fair, so like even last year, what was his free throw numbers were terrible. He's made a better, he's making like 78% of his free throws now. So that's better. I think he's good in transition. When they can get him the ball early and he has a chance to try to get his own in early offense. I like his length. I think he's a good defender. He's another one of the guys. Cardwell, Carter, and Clifford all have positive defensive differentials on the Kings. So I think that's all good. But, again, it just comes down to, I don't think he's a point guard. So he's a shooting guard that can't shoot. And that's a problem, and it's inconsistent. Sometimes he swishes one and the next one, he might be an air ball. And that's the sign of an inconsistent shooter. And the more the data starts to stack up on top of each other, from a rookie season to a summer league to the G League to his time in the NBA this year, the more it stacks up and the more evidence we have that he's about a 22 or 23% three-point shooter, it's that much harder, I think, for him. But he's under contract, right? He's going to be here they offered up his qualifying offer or whatever, right? So he's going to be here unless they just waive him or someone else wants to take a shot at him, but I don't see that happening. Damian,
he's a valuable commodity in this league, Bobby. The whole league should be banging down the door of the Sacramento Kings.
Okay, now I'm really laughing.
The likes of Devin Carter.
Now, look, Bobby, I'll say this though, and we've had this conversation on here a number of different times. If the season is what it is for the Kings, and it's about development and seeing what you got,
sure,
I've always said, why wouldn't you play Devin more? If it's a internal like personality locker room thing, then that's different. But as far as basketball wise, why wouldn't you play him more to develop him or to see what you got? When you talk about some of the numbers, and I know it's a bit of a different position, but I can't imagine Nick Clifford's numbers are that different offensively, and he defends and Devin defends, but he gets a longer leash than Devin does. It feels like he should get more of an opportunity in this season.
And I don't disagree with that at all, Casey. I think yeah, at this point, roll him out there and see what he could do. He should definitely be part of the rotation. But as I said before, if he is, I don't think he should be getting point guard minutes, and he shouldn't be bringing the ball up the floor unless he's the first pass in that outlet and he has a chance to get to the rim, because he really is. I mean, the long arms and long reach, things he can do at speed with the basketball, they do impress me. And I was high on him. You know, he's someone who's probably going to make me look dumb, because I thought, well, if he hasn't already, because, you know, I thought the Kings should have picked him at that spot, you know, in the draft where it happened. So, yeah, I'll admit my mistakes. And that's something I think that is important in basketball, is like, you know, if you screw something up and the writing's on the wall, just admit it and move on, and get on to the next one, and try to learn from your mistakes and what happened there. So, I guess where I messed up was thinking that the 37% he shot from 3-point range in college was gonna translate here at the next level, and so far it has not. But I also, you know, I mean, we're making jokes and stuff like that. I also really do think he is an NBA quality defender. I like the length, and I like the ability in transition, but he's just got to be able to shoot it better.
Yeah, two things. One, don't worry, Bobby. This whole team made me and Kenny look like idiots, so that's it's perfectly fine if one draft selection made you look back. Two, I always try to give Devin the benefit of, well, I don't always, but I benefit. Devin in some cases deserves the benefit of the doubt, and the fact that, you know, for whatever, he was drafted into a situation, he was hurt, he was needed immediately, he wasn't available. He comes back, he finally makes his debut. He's debuting for a coach who wasn't the coach when he was drafted, and he's got a coach who's trying to figure things out. He's got a star player that wants things out, who wants out. They're trying to work things out, you know, with DeMar DeRozan in this team, while they're also simultaneously, at least a few weeks later, or maybe it was a month later, trying to work Zach LaVine into this. So he was put in a really difficult position. He's going down to Stockton, trying to get some minutes there, come back. Those Stockton minutes never equate to anything that matters in the NBA. And I was really hoping this offseason it would be like, okay, let's see what this young man has. And this season just is basically dead from the start. And it looked like, you know, when this team was getting blown out for a 14-day stretch by 41 points, he wasn't getting off the bench. And that was the eye-opening moment for me, where it's like, there's something more here. And it may have less to do with the basketball player and more the person, or less to do about the basketball player and more about how a particular person or persons feel about him. And he's probably in a situation now with Sacramento where he can't win.
I agree. And it is so much, Damien, as you know, about situations and about who likes you and who doesn't like you. And this roster is just, you know, I mean, we had the huge log jam at the guard position, which doesn't make sense to me. You know, God love Russ. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. I from day one have not understood what the Russell Westbrook thing was about with the Sacramento Kings. I still don't understand it.
My happiness, Bobby. It was about my happiness.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to tread lightly here as I was talking about Russ, because I know Damien can get a little sensitive about his guy. But yeah, I don't get it. And you know, I'm super idealistic. To me, develop your guys in the G League. You want a mentor, put them on the coaching staff. That's, you know, I know that's not always the way it works, but that's the way I'd like it to work. So I'm not saying that Russell doesn't have things to offer as a professional. Certainly he does. The way he goes about his work, the way he shows up, the way he's kept himself in shape, all these things are great. But for what he's done to the team and how he didn't fit and doesn't fit and will never fit with Zach LaVine and DeMar, I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it from day one. And that is something that I would really like to know with regard to Doug, is how much did Doug push for wanting Dennis Schroeder? How much did Doug push for wanting Westbrook? Who was behind the idea of Drew Eubanks? Who wanted Dario Saric and McDermott back here on the team? All those things just didn't make any sense to me then, and they still don't make sense to me now.
Bobby, help us out, man, before you get out of here. You said that, you're not interested in watching this team, but something brought you back. Well, I need help. I need help with finding interest watching these guys. What are some of the things to watch for the final 20 games or so?
He's a big Dylan fan, and he can't even watch Dylan.
Yeah.
Right now. At least I got Max and Russ. My man can't even watch Dylan Cardwell
play. Right. I think Precious Achiuwa playing for a contract. I mean, I love the way Precious is playing hard and he's doing the things. God bless him. Here's another guy, we see, you're always surprised when that 3-point shot goes in, right? And he made a few, got to the point where he was actually probably above the 33% line. Now he's back down to like 31%. It kind of, the numbers usually find themselves. Precious has a lot more off the dribble game, though, than I ever really realized. I will admit that he plays hard. He's playing for a contract, and gosh darn it, he might just get himself another one. I mean, you could do a lot worse than having Precious be here. And if that's the case, then make him be your mentor and your example. You don't need 5 veterans on the team, and 2 or 3 of which never play, and one who has a shot selection that's just, unbelievably bad in Russ. I'm curious about that. So, and then Killian, if Killian keeps going, KC, watch the point guard skills, pay attention to that 17 assists to 1 turnover. That really is real. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, to come into the NBA and in like 65 or 70 minutes do that. But I think it's been just as easy to just see him miss those shots and just think, oh, he can't do it. But again, I fall back on my G League work and the 34% over 2 seasons. I'm ready to roll with that a lot more. It's the same distance in the G League as it is in the NBA. So I'd be ready to roll with that he is an improved shooter. We just haven't seen it yet. Or it's possible I'm dead wrong and he just has the yips in the NBA and it'll never happen. But we're going to find out.
Bobby, great stuff, man. I say this every time we talk. We have to do this more regularly, man. But know that I'm tapped in. Anytime I see Bobby Gerould live on TikTok, I'm tapping in to see what records are spinning that night.
I appreciate that. I'll be doing my thing on Saturday night on Twitch. Definitely come and check it out. The Soulful and Funky Show.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bobby, we appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you guys.
Take care,
sir.
Bobby.
That's our man, Bobby Gerould, right there.
So glad he